Today, Eric Grossman and I'm Ivan Taylor from Policy Dynamics in Ontario, Canada. And Eric Grossman is an associate of mine. And we're thinking of trying to help small businesses and entrepreneurs with using systems thinking to expand their business and to sustain their business and to basically help them use the systems thinking to solve problems in their daily work. So Eric's got a case study that he's going to describe here today that I think that is very indicative of the possible potential of using systems thinking to uh, to help small business people. So, Eric, do you want to talk about the experience you had with this small business person?
Yeah. This is sure. I basically met a woman who claimed she had a marketing problem. She's noticed some decline. Basically, she owns a handful of rental properties, about 15 rental properties, on two really beautiful lakes, an isolated part in the northern part of her state. And then she also owns a manor, which is up way up on a hill in between the two lakes. It kind of overlooks the entire lake. So she has like basically a wedding venue and a bunch of rental homes that go along with it. And she's noticed decline over the last couple of years. Particularly last year was a big drop off, and she's really concerned. So her approach, her fix to this was marketing, right? Essentially bringing more people. And I was interested in hearing this and applying systems thinking and system dynamics into her problem because I smelled basically I smelled smoke, right? Like I heard her say decline, and then the fix is marketing, and I instantly thought, okay, I think there's something else potential here. So there's some maybe there's a structural issue, right? Because that's what it sounded like to me. So I wanted to come in there helping her with her problem the way she saw it, and then I wanted to kind of look for other things to see what I saw, and that's exactly what happened. So we started having a conversation about marketing, and it wasn't much longer. What I need to do is I need to transcript these things so I have a better memory of exactly what happened. But I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said something that really intrigued my interest, where she mentioned, I wish those around me would take more responsibility. And it was something along those lines. And the second she said that, I was like, boom, all right, we got it. We have some structural issues, some real problems that she is not really seeing here, some things that are underneath the surface. So when she says, I wish, the second she said, I wish, right, that implied to me a lack of control. If you're the business owner, you shouldn't wish somebody was doing something, right? The idea here is she didn't say I want or I need them to take on more responsibility or be more responsible. What she said is I wish, which implied to me a lack of control. So long story short, that is actually what it came down to. And we found out that she has owned businesses in the past, and in her past, she has very controlling behavior. And she's noticed that her controlling behavior, the more controlling she becomes, the more she pushes people away and creates undesirable results. So she thought this time in this particular business, she wants to avoid that. So her fix, her solution for that is to decentralize control and reduce responsibility. And that worked for a while, right? So this reinforced this idea in her that, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's give more and more autonomy to those around me, and let's reduce my responsibility more, because then I'm not going to be there. Therefore, I won't be controlling. And then something really interesting happened. Now she's getting now she's got a decline in business and other behavioral problems. So I'll go over that in a second. So basically my analysis after it was over was the feedback loop that was driving the behavior, in my interpretation, was that the owner experienced negative outcomes in the past due to controlling behavior, like turnover and dissatisfaction. And the past experience feeds into a loop that reinforces avoidance of control, pushing the owner into a pattern of decentralized decision making. Right. So all right, cool. We got that that's her feedback loop that's driving the behavior. And then I'm looking at, so I like to look at things in terms of games, and we can get into this to another time, but I'm just going to use this for my analysis. The current game at play here is avoiding authoritarianism in her mind. The object in this game is to sidestep control at all costs under the assumption that controlling behavior is bad. Right. And the rules that shape this game that she's playing is the more decisions are decentralized, the less the owner feels they are being controlled. sorry, the less the owner feels she's being controlling, thereby fulfilling the objective of her game, which is avoiding authoritarianism. The hidden assumption here is the linchpin, which is controlling behavior is always bad and always leads to negative outcomes. Therefore, controlling behavior should be avoided. And with every hidden assumption, there's a sacrificed opportunity. And in this particular case, her sacrifice opportunity is by overly decentralizing the owner. I'm sorry, by overly decentralizing, the owner misses the chance to provide useful guidance or ensure quality standards, possibly leading to inconsistent customer experiences or operational efficiencies. And that's exactly what she got. So with this what was so cool about this, what was so interesting about going down this rabbit hole with her is we hit a nerve, and that was the moment where I knew we really had something, because that was a really awakening moment for her, where she really realized that, wow, some of the problems that come within me. For a while, she was pointing the blame around her, and she mentioned a few different times that we need to all take more responsibility. But what she was really saying in there is that I don't want to take full responsibility because I don't think I deserve full responsibility. She wants other people to take more responsibility, but she doesn't want to be the person that hands it to them and holds them to those standards. So therefore, the responsibility does come down to her. And after getting her to see this, it was a really awakening moment for her. And she actually, it was exciting. It was an exciting moment because now she actually sees opportunity to get this fixed. So I came up with an analysis of how can we turn this around? How can we make this how can we make this into a better situation? And essentially the idea here is to reframe the idea of control for her. So rather than calling it control because she believes controlling is bad, let's relabel as effective leadership. And within effective leadership, the feedback loop that could drive effective leadership is as the owner successfully balances control with autonomy, the staff and business operations thrive. Success and positive outcomes from this approach feedback into reinforcing the owner's new balanced management style. And that's what we're trying to do here, is try to really create a balanced management style for her. So the new game here being effective leadership essentially is to optimize control and autonomy to achieve the best results for everybody. And in doing this, now the new hidden assumption is that control and autonomy can coexist to create an effective management style, which can result in better outcomes than either extreme. Right. And now by fostering this new balanced culture, we can create a work environment that everybody wants to be a part of. And now she can get that responsibility. She wants to get it from everybody, because before she was getting information monopolies. Information wasn't getting told to her in the way that she wanted to be told. She was only being told what they wanted her to hear, and she was letting that happen. She wanted to have meetings, but they rejected the idea of meetings because they didn't want to have meetings because it's inconvenient for them. Essentially, they were doing everything it took to do the bare minimum to get the job done because they were getting paid well, and there was no incentive to do better than what they were currently doing. The system was set up in a way that gave them full control to live their lives exactly how they wanted to live it. So why would they go out of their way to make business better if they didn't have to, because they were being rewarded not to? So after seeing this, yeah, go ahead. You just
I
ask something.
just, yeah, I think that is that's somewhat of a problematic assumption that these people are are doing less work. I think I think definitely there's an argument that people maybe want to maximize their utility, and we don't know what their utility is, and that utility could be less work for the same money. However, I think it would be much more useful to assume that people also get some satisfaction from their job, and and doing a good job should also be part of the assumptions about what's in their utility. So, uh, I think that uh, maybe again we go back to this dynamic that we've talked about before, is that system dynamics, as you said, the structure determines the behavior, and you're looking for the structure. And so you by talking about people, say, being lazy or not wanting to do their job, you're setting up a blame situation where you're blaming someone. And in fact, I think we should really avoid blaming anyone. We should always talk about how their behavior is actually controlled by the structure of the system.
Totally fair points. In this particular case, there was evidence of this, though. She did bring up the fact that she found out there was a wedding that wasn't booked on a particular weekend because they wanted that weekend off. So there is incentives in these particular case for them to determine whether they even want to do business in the first place and then not share that information.
Yeah, I think that definitely not sharing information is part of the structure that's developed, and also having the autonomy to take on or not take on jobs is also part of the structure. So again, I go back to my really strong statement that that it's the structure that is maybe allowing this behavior that maybe is unfavorable, but I don't want to necessarily get to the point where we're actually going to blame people for doing these things that maybe they find are in their best utility. I think the argument that I would make is that you want to align incentives. So you have here basically a boss and an employee who are in a principal agent situation where the boss is the principal and the employee is the agent, and they have asymmetric information. So the agent may know more about the situation than the boss and may want to control that information flow to the boss. And what the structure is that there's not properly aligned incentives. So but the goal of changing the structure should be to try to figure out how to align the incentives. So how do you make sure that the goals of the boss and the goals of the employee are aligned?
So if I understand correctly, I think you're making the assumption that in my particular case of observing the behavior, I'm pointing blame, right? Like essentially in this particular case, I'm identifying observed behavior, and I totally agree it's the structure that caused the behavior. And this is what I'm trying to explain to the business owner to look at it in this particular ways rather than because she's the one who wanted to distribute blame. Essentially, is what she wanted to do. She wanted to even it across the board. But I told her it's more advantageous to think about is a structural problem. There's incentives for them to do that. There's
Right,
incentives
right.
to take the weekend off and not book somebody because they want the weekend off and they're going to get away with it. So
Yeah,
it's not. I'm not necessarily pointing saying they're doing something bad. I'm saying that the system's aligned, and you're right. The incentives and the structures align in a way where they can get away with doing that and keep their job and keep things going. Keep living their lives on the way the current state of the current standard of living lets
yeah,
them.
yeah. Going back to this idea of observation, I think this is a powerful idea as well. That when you think about incentives, and I think about it as terms of trying to determine what the utility functions are of these principals and agents, and and utility is a very subjective thing, so you can't really determine that. However, a common way to approach it is to observe, and by observing, you see what people do rather than what people say. And when you look at what people do, you get this idea of revealed preferences. They reveal what their utility function is by what they do. And so you can somehow get around the subjectivity by looking by observing, and by inferring from the actions what the preferences are.
I think that's the paradigm in what we do is it's how we observe, right? Because everybody's observing to one degree or not, and it's your interpretation of that observation. And I think in observing things in a systems thinking perspective, particularly using archetypes, you talk about that in another conversation, but I think it's a more profound understanding of what's really happening and how we can really address these problems, right? Like you mentioned before, the system archetypes are great at identifying problems, but they don't really. There's no real system archetypes for addressing solutions, but there are hidden assumptions within each archetype that we can use to find solutions for these problems. Because does that make sense? Like I think I'm
Yeah,
losing my.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it's important to be creative and look for solutions to these problems. I think that one of the things that we were talking about was cause and effect, and for example, looking at results and seeing whether the short term and the long term results are going to work in your favor or not. Do you have any thoughts about the difference between the short term solutions for this business person and the long term solutions?
Yeah. So I think, and we talked about this too before, is sometimes addressing the root cause, even though it will be the right thing long term, it can take a long time. And it's not going to alleviate a lot of the short term problems, sometimes taking care of the root problem. So how can we address both the short term and long term? In this particular case, I don't think, I think addressing the root problem can also address the short term problem. And yeah, so my advice is essentially to reframe the entire organization, the purpose and the mission of the entire organization, so that everybody, essentially standards need to change. Another problem I noticed here is kind of eroding goals. Right at the very beginning, we had really good goals with this company. So did the employees, and things seemed to work better then. But standards started to drift over time, and this goes to the boiling frog idea, that if they're slipping, but they're slipping at a slow enough rate that it's hard to notice. Or if a certain standard got dropped, it's like, okay, that one's not that big of a deal, I can let that one slide. But over time, these things add up, and now she's seeing the results of this particular problem. So yeah, I think my suggestion, my recommendation, the kind of approach to this is, the bus is now leaving town. Right, we have done things a certain way for a certain amount of time, and it's gotten us here. We are facing an existential crisis now. She's taking a significant loss consistently over time, and things are only getting worse. So if something doesn't significantly change immediately, she's going to die, or the company's going to die. So I reframe it as a way is, okay, the bus has been parked in this particular town, and in other words, the analogy here is we've been doing things for certain ways, and there's certain comfort levels along what we're doing. It's time for the bus to leave. We need to make some serious changes. And these changes are different, are new expectations and new standards that need to be set. And there's probably going to be some resistance and some potential problems here. But this is where we need to pitch it to the rest of the team, and we need to ask them that we would love them to come. We would love them to come with us on this new journey to transform the organization to a better place. But if you don't want to be part of this, because we are going to be making some serious changes here, right, like control needs to be redistributed away, like new standards need to be set. You can't just say, if the owner wants to set a meeting where we talk about ideas, and the staff says, I don't want meetings, so we're not having them, that kind of behavior needs to change. And these are the kind of standards and expectations that need to change moving forward. And so that's the first step, is set a new crystal clear standards that help the organization as a whole. But also, we also still want to give agency to people. It's not like we're taking agency away from anybody. We still want them to have agency. We still want them to be able to do what they want to do the way they do it, because they do their job well. Mm-hmm. But the idea is we need to start focusing on the organization as a whole rather than individual incentives. And that's the first step.
Okay, I want to step back quite a bit farther into the initial discussion you had with the original idea that the business person thought that the problem was marketing, and you felt that there was something hidden there. How did the business person respond when you contradicted them and said that no, this is not a marketing problem, this is something deeper?
Oh, okay, so that narrative was in my head. I didn't express that out loud. What I wanted to do was I wanted for her to see it on her own. So I led her through a series of questions that just came to the top of my mind. This is why I think from now on I'm going to start recording at least the transcript, so I can have a better idea of what I said, because it was really good, and we had a really good dialogue back and forth. And it was just the questions that were coming up in my head were kind of guiding myself. So I would essentially create an assertion. My assertion in this particular case was a control problem. It doesn't mean I'm right. When I'm making an assertion, I'm creating a starting point. And honestly, I don't want to be right. I want to be wrong, because in creating assertion, I start with I'm setting a standard. I'm setting a starting point, so I can figure out where I'm wrong. It gives me a way of figuring out where to go from there. So I never really brought that up to her in those terms. Instead, I just led her through a series of questions that got her to the point where, oh my God, yeah, I used to be really controlling, and that used to cause problems, and I don't have control now over my own company because of those problems in the past. So it was an awakening moment for her to discover on her own. It was my questions that led her there.
Yeah, I understand that the business person got really excited about seeing the problem refocused and wanted to really get into this in a big way in the systems thinking, using systems thinking in a big way, possibly by herself or with you, continuing on with this. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Yeah. So what's where are you going from here?
So this is what's really exciting for me in this particular case, is that when I engage with her now, she responds quickly. Like, she wants to set up meetings. She's there, like, with her pen and a smile on her face. Like, there's a new level of energy that she's bringing to her to facing this problem that she didn't have before. It was more mopey, and she was sad. She didn't know what. We did go over at the very beginning. I created a little digital whiteboard, and I had a little picture, of different emotions and stuff, because I want to know, like, how are you feeling right now? And her biggest her she was angry, essentially, is when we very first started. The very first conversation we had, she started with, I'm very angry. And I wanted to understand, okay, what degree is your anger? Is your anger running towards sadness or fear? And her anger was definitely running more towards fear. She was scared that if something didn't change immediately, her business was going to die. And she did not want that to happen. She did not want to fail business here. She has opportunity. She's got a great place. She doesn't want to let it go. She wants to fix this thing. So she was really afraid that if things keep going the way they're going, she's going to lose it. But she didn't feel she had she didn't feel empowered that she could retake control of her business and make change happen. And I think going through this process, the more we go through this process, the more she starts to see, not only can she make things happen, but she is making things happen. These discoveries that she's getting in these conversations we're having are moments of her actually making internal change. She's noticing real change, real time. So yeah, so this is why I really like the idea of root cause, dealing with root causes, because we really did hit a nerve with her. She really did. She recognizes now a root problem that she has within herself, where she's afraid to take responsibility because she thinks she's going to push people away by being an authoritarian. And now she's saying, I don't have to really suppress this anymore. I can use this in a productive way. And it's been a really profound experience for her in this moment. And yeah, things are still rough. It's like nothing has really changed at the moment. I mean, we're still in the early steps, but it doesn't matter. Her attitude is 100% different. She's approaching everything 100% different.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, and it's very positive. However, we did you did talk about a little bit about the hidden assumptions of controlling behavior, that are her vision, or the hidden assumptions of her understanding of the controlling behavior. Um, are there other hidden assumptions that you can see in this?
Outside of controlling behavior, or within
Yeah,
controlling behavior?
outside, well, both, wherever you can find hidden assumptions, I think that's important. That's an important insight that systems thinking can bring to these kind of discussions.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I do have some notes. Let me just take a peek.
The other side of that is unintended consequences. I think, and I think you agree, is that the two there's a number of things that system dynamics or systems thinking can help people overcome, and that is hidden assumptions and unintended consequences. And like we said, understanding that structure determines behavior. And the other idea that I think is key from the discussion you said is the idea of delays and how you can how systems thinking can understand the delays that, like you said, if you get to the root cause and try to solve the root cause, there may be a delayed reaction. You may not be able to see results right away. And if this business person is in an existential crisis, thinking the company will fail in the short term, she can't necessarily wait for change to happen. She can't wait to solve the root cause. She has to take action right away.
Okay, so that's interesting because I think, I totally understand that, but like running a business is risky. There's no guarantees for anything. So there's no guarantees anything's ever going to work for anybody, and no matter what you do.
Mm.
So the attitude change we're talking about here, like her new approach to how she wants to run her business in a way that's different than the past, in a way that's potentially more empowering. This is real change. Like I said, real change, real time. Like this is something that's already, the emotions have already started going. And in doing that, she's having insights and how to understand, how to look at her business in a different way. One of the things we've done too is she has the venue, the wedding venue, but she also has the rental homes, but she's looking at those as two separate entities. So we worked on the idea of looking at that holistically and now looking at it as an ecosystem. How can these things work together? I mean, they do work together because the rental homes provide a place to rent for the wedding and the wedding party. But at the same time, what else can we do here to create an overall ecosystem, right? Like how about partnering with other events in the area? Like for example, there's a snowmobile race in the winter, about a half hour away, and there's a lot of people that join this race. So what if we partner with them and the venue now becomes a spot for these people to meet beforehand, have a drink or talk, and just like socialize with everybody else in the event, like right, like, and then also you have the rental homes that are available for them, like so repurposing these things and not thinking about them as just a wedding venue and that we're going to be dead in the winter, or just a rental home. This is how we're going to pitch these home. Each home should have its own story because each home is unique. She has giant homes with beautiful kitchens, and she has little homes that are off the water. Each home should have its own story, and thinking about it in this way, she's starting to come up with new ideas. So this new attitude that she's created, yeah, it's not, things aren't going to fix immediately, but she's already noticing, hey, here's 10 brand new ideas that I came up with on my own. So she's already noticing, like, that's real change, right? Like, it doesn't mean those 10 ideas are going to work. Just because you repurpose the thing and you change the marketing message around doesn't mean it's going to stick with anybody. But the idea is, I'm changing the marketing message. I'm doing something different in real time, and I'm seeing that I'm doing things different, and I'm responding to these different things in a different way with a new attitude. That can be tracked real time. That can be proved, right? So she's at least feels empowered that she can do things differently, and she can see new results because of that, and she can respond to those new results and therefore do more new things, right? So she's built this feedback loop of empowerment, and that's essentially what I'm trying to do, is push her into this idea of the feedback you're receiving. It's your interpretation of that feedback is the thing that's going to make you successful or not.
Right. It's that's the classic decision rules. How do you what decisions are you making based on the feedback, and what decisions are you making to change the structure, let's say, or the inputs or the outputs of the system. Anyways, yeah. So
Yeah, and to add to that, it's also your ability to recognize the inputs and outputs,
yeah.
right? Like a lot of times, these inputs and outputs can come and they can come and they go, and they can become unconscious. They can become subconscious. They can just be there, right? Like we were going through some of the processes that she does. There are a lot of processes that go underlooked, right? Like we talked about marketing narratives. It was like she never even thought about creating marketing narratives. It was just like marketing. It was just putting these are our homes. These are our homes available. We have this wedding venue available. But she never thought about, like, what about the wedding venue as an, right? What about you? What about restructuring your company as an experience company? That's something we talked about. Rather, you're not a vacation rental spot and a wedding venue. You're an experience giving company. The vacation the rental homes can be marketed in a way where you're disrupting the problems and um,
Yeah,
monotony of everyday life, right? And you bring people up there to experience a break in that.
right, right. Well, that goes back to something else we've talked about a lot is personas of clients. So basically, what you're saying is you're opening up the idea of having different personas for different people. But let's go back to the employee and boss relationship here. You know, I got the impression that this was a key to the successful operation, and the idea of control was central to this. Could you just give me some more ideas about how she's planning to change maybe herself, maybe her employees to work together and and what is she thinking? What can you give me an idea of maybe what's her insights and what's her thinking about this controlling behavior?
So there is an unintended consequence in the same way the way you said. I see her feeling empowered to retake control and make decisions in her own company. And that's really essentially what I'm saying. When I'm saying control, I just mean like her ability to make decisions. So it's not I wish people would take more responsibility. It's I need them to, and here's the things that I'm gonna implement so that so that they can do the things that I need them to get done. There isn't a potential unintended consequence there where she does think she's changing, but she actually isn't changing, and she actually becomes controlling and pushes them away in the long run, and then says, "Oh my God, this didn't work." Right? That for sure is an unintended consequence. So this is why I with the unintended, and this is what's great about understanding potential unintended consequences. Now we can try to figure out how can we avoid this from happening in the first place, right?
Mm,
And one of the things we need to do is first, she needs to have a full team meeting, right? We need to get everybody together, and she needs to express how she feels, like lay it all out on like all the problems, like be completely transparent. Say this is this, like be honest. If it was a control problem in the past, and this is how you feel now, be completely open and honest about how you feel and how you don't want. You're not looking to become an authoritarian. You're not looking to you know be the helicopter parent in this company. You want them to still have the same agency. So we really want to express this idea that we want to improve quality of life for everybody. This isn't about like taking some quality of life away from the employees and so that she can have some more. This isn't a zero sum kind of thing. This is more of like how can we boost everybody all time at all times, and in doing that, we've come up with a way to try to actually make their lives better in this particular situation. Because
right.
one right because at the same time, because she decentralized control, that means there's a lot on their plate, right? Like there's a ton on their plate, and that means they have to think creatively, and they have to be innovative, and they have to do all this kind of stuff, and that can be a burnout. That can cause burnout, right? That could be a potential problem of what they're doing, why they're doing what they're doing, not because it's a malicious thing and they hate her and they just like they're just running around like kids in a candy store. It could be just the fact that they're burnt out because
Mm,
they don't have much structure, and they're trying to take all this control that
yeah,
was once fun, and now it's just I don't know what to do anymore, right? So it's just confusing at this point.
yeah,
So yeah, so that's why I say I feel like this could actually benefit their lives, because now essentially what we're trying to do is create a real structure where they actually have responsibilities that they are responsible for, and we can figure out what are the things that are burning them out. How can we either change those, automate them, or remove them from their plate and give them to something else, so we can make sure that they're doing what they do best and only doing the things that they do best. And again, improving everybody as a whole.
yeah. Well, there's a couple of thoughts I had there related to that. Um, One was just going back to the unintended consequences. I think it would be great to empower the employees to identify unintended consequences. So we were talking about having, say, a meeting, a brainstorming session about what could go wrong. and trying to identify what could go wrong with some of these ideas so that they could maybe avoid those problems that they could envision in this going wrong. Uh, uh, did you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a great idea. There's an unintended consequence there because there's right the culture at the in this current particular in this particular point place is no meetings. They don't want meetings. They have nothing to do with meetings. Don't know why. I'm not. I don't even care about why. Right? It could be the fact that they just don't want to have her regain control. It could be the fact that they think they're boring. I don't know. But the idea is that culture still dictates we don't want to get together and exchange ideas. So we need to reshift the culture in a way where we want them to voluntarily want to have meetings, right? We don't want to force meetings. The idea here isn't we're having meetings, you need to show up, you need to be part of this thing. The idea here is we want people to want to have meetings. So how can we create this? And we don't have to call it a meeting. We call it a brunch on Sunday or something like that. We can put it together in a spot where we all get together and we exchange ideas. We need to look at it more as of a place of exchanging ideas. So if we can reset, if we can make that happen, if we can make people voluntarily want to be a part of these things, then yeah, these would be great. These would be great opportunities for them to come up with potential unintended consequences of the decisions she makes, because she
Yeah,
also needs to be put in a spot where she takes feedback too. This isn't all about
yeah,
them.
yeah. I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think that there's a hidden assumption in the idea of not wanting meetings. I think the hidden assumption is that meetings are unproductive and that they're a waste of time. And I think that, if we can change that hidden assumption into, this is going to be a productive meeting. This is going to actually produce results. And I think that, brainstorming on potential consequences of potential negative consequences of some of these policies, I think, I think that would be very productive. And I'm not sure, maybe I don't know, maybe that would be enticing for someone to understand that yes, this meeting will be productive, and I will be able to actually have a have a role in the company by identifying, some of these unintended consequences of future policies.
I
So
think that's the key you said there is it's the empowerment from the entire team to contribute, right? So it's like
yeah.
everybody's equal here, everybody's opinions the same, everybody's word counts. And I think that makes a more interesting meeting.
Yeah, like let's say another issue that meetings may be, a one-way street that the boss is telling everyone what to do. I'm wondering whether, if it might be useful. Maybe we could do something as an intermediary between the boss and the employees instead of having a meeting that the boss controls. We move in as a facilitator of the meeting and we separate these two groups that may be antagonistic and try to try to make sure that they're communicating properly so that it doesn't feel like a one way discussion. And so, what I'm thinking, it's similar to, bringing in a consultant. I know there's a lot of negativity about consultants, but if this business person was thinking that having a meeting with to talk about these kind of potential unintended consequences was useful, we could facilitate that kind of a meeting.
What do you think is the hidden assumption behind companies and negative perceptions towards consultancy?
Well, I think that the classic one is, of course, that the consultants are really after their own incentives rather than the business. That they want to help themselves rather than help the business. So and it's classic that the business has to help itself. The consultant can't help the business if it doesn't want help, and also it may not even be able to help the business if it does want help. So the consultant, either just tells them what they already know, or tells them something that's irrelevant, and that's where maybe this would be different, because instead of us telling them, we would allow them to tell us, which I guess they would things they already know, but the idea is that they would maybe get a communication link with the boss, so that instead of them, just having these ideas, they can actually get them out in the open and get a communication link with the boss.
Yeah, yeah. Essentially, we're leveraging our observation, right? Our ability to observe what's going on
Yeah,
in that particular
yeah,
case. We're not suggesting anything. We're not pulling from a playbook of things and saying do A, B, and C. We're observing that we're in the moment with them. We're observing what's going on, and we're trying to make that as effective as possible.
yeah. There is a powerful idea about consultants that when you bring in a consultant, you're often trying to transfer technology. So the consultant has a certain technology, and the company wants to learn that technology, and so they bring in the consultant to take the knowledge and the technology and apply it to the company. So to some extent, that is a good thing. And I think what we have a systems thinking technology that we can bring into a company and transfer our systems thinking technology to their business. So I think, that's a very positive thing if we can frame it that way.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair, right? Like organizational leaders read books to learn things, right? So it's essentially like bringing the author in to have a conversation about a particular topic.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The final thing I want to talk about is something that I experienced, and I thought this was a fabulous thing, was servant leadership. And you talked about it just slightly, and that is giving people the tools to get their job done, or get their work done better. And I think that's a really powerful idea, that I experienced a leader, who we would have these daily meetings during a major crisis, and her statement almost every meeting would start off with, you know, what can I do? What can I get you to help you with this, work that you're doing to solve this crisis? And what resources do you need? What do you need? So I thought that was, a powerful example of servant leadership, where instead of the leader directing, the leader was providing resources for the employees to actually, get their job done efficiently and effectively.
Essentially saying in being in the service of others, right? Like
Yeah, the boss, instead of being a person who's directing people to do things, they're enabling people to do things. So they're providing resources to enable them to do their job better.
so now we're talking about intrinsic motivators, right? Like now we're getting into like there was this I think Seth Godin did a survey with 15,000 professionals, and they ranked 15 different attributes of their professional life, and number 15 and 14 was money and time off. Number one, which was I actually loved, and it totally makes sense to me in anyways, which is the capacity to know I can do better, that I did better than I thought I could do. Right? It's advancing. It's leveling up. It's creating a new skill. It's doing better than you even thought you were capable of doing. That's a real thing that drives people. So when you say becoming a resource, right? And there are schools that are doing this now. When we can talk about like the education system being upside down, the idea of the assumption being that the best way for a student to learn is for the teacher to teach the student. Right? That's how we've been doing it for 150 years longer. We right, like why hasn't that been challenged? Well, it kind of has, because there are now schools that do it the other way around, where the teacher's the resource and the kids teach themselves, right? Because you
Yeah,
learn best when you're teaching something.
yeah. Okay, well, I think we can wrap it up there. And I'm really interested in hearing more about how this develops. So that's another aspect of I think that we want to change the paradigm here, of like I think you said before, of building a relationship rather than having a transaction. So I really hope, and I know you will continue to have a relationship here that is longer than just solving this immediate problem. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it. Maybe we'll have another conversation about this in a few months and see how things have changed.
Yeah, yeah, and like it's It's just like what you said. It's about in the service of others. That's what drives me to doing this, is empowering others. And it's that moment where you see the empowerment, because you really can see it when somebody finds it. When somebody finds it within themselves, when you awaken somebody to something inside that they haven't seen, or they see in a different way, and they see it in a way that empowers them, you know what I mean. You know when you got it. You know it immediately. And those are the moments that drive me. That those are the things that excite me. Because it's like, now this person who literally thought there was no hope sees hope, and it's that, like, that little interaction, that little exchange, that intersection. That's the thing that drives me. That's the thing that excites me, and that's what makes me want to do more of this.
Yeah, it's it's definitely great to see this kind of response to our ideas about systems thinking, and really seeing people excited about it.
Yeah, and this
Okay,
is just one more thing to add. Like, this is the beginning of many conversations, and our conversations will constantly get better the more we do these too, right? Like, we've talked with just a few clients, but I feel like 6 months from now, if we keep putting these conversations out there, there will be now a catalog of us having these conversations, and how much cleaner and better they get over time, because we are refining our process, and we do really have something cool that we're really building, and we're really making better, and I think we're only going to get more and more articulate when we talk about it.
great. Okay, thank you very much. And like I said, if anyone has any thoughts, they can put it in the comments when I post this video. So we'd be very happy to talk to you in the future. And if we can help you, just reach out to us. Okay,
Great, thanks, Ivan.
see you, Eric.
Yeah.